So we've set ourselves a little bit of a challenge today. High tide is at 5:30 and sunset isn't until 9 o'clock. We are heading out tomorrow morning for a sunrise. So still wanted to come out, but obviously not too late because we'll probably won't go to bed. But we've come out, and what we've decided to do is set ourselves a challenge with black and white long exposure. So the sun has just gone down behind this cliff here, so there's no direct light now on the scene behind us, but when we first arrived the light was beautiful, and I've experimented so far with 2 shots which I'll talk you through in a second. But I've just got an exposure running now where I've focus stacked it, so focused far into the back, and I'm just focusing now on the rocks that are closest to me on a 4-minute exposure to completely smooth the water and hopefully pick up some cloud detail behind all of those sea rocks out there. This is an absolutely amazing location, and we'll show you around and show you what we're doing. So this little shot that I'm focused on at the moment is trying to capture the rocks in this little pool here, and we've got all these leading lines of rock, absolutely fantastic shapes and structures within those, and then you've got all of this green algae sort of growing around the rocks. Although in black and white you're not going to obviously be able to see that colour, but hopefully we can pick up some of that texture still. So what I've done is I've taken 2 shots here. There's some rocks that are very, very close to the camera, and I've tilted the camera down just to try and include those in the composition. But because they're so close, obviously I've focused on those rocks and then focused maybe a third in, maybe a little bit more than a third in, and done another shot again on 4-minute exposure, and I'll bring those together. So just to cut through this little rock pool and see what's going on underneath there. There's rocks and there's seaweed and little bits of driftwood and all sorts of things just under there. So I've just used the polarizer just to cut through so that we can see that. As I say, that sun now has gone down behind here, so we're not going to, I don't think, get much direct light anymore. But we'll bring those 2 shots together and we'll pop those up and let you have a look. Now, my black and white editing skills are not fantastic. I much prefer colour. Again, I suppose maybe with us not doing that much photography recently, I'm a bit more open to trying anything basically. So we've done intentional camera movement and thought that we'd have a go at some black and white, because the conditions just now are not really for colour. The blue in the sky just behind the rock is very light. Above us it's a little bit darker. But we'll see how they turn out. It's always good to get that practice coming out with the camera and then the editing side of things as well. So I found a third composition, and we've come a little bit closer to the water's edge here. Little bit dodgy underfoot trying to carry your camera across these rocks, especially, you know, when there's wet seaweed and stuff. But yeah, so what are we focusing on now? So we've gone as far out as we can safely, and we've got these rocks in the immediate sort of foreground, if you like, that are submerged in the tide. The water is swirling over them, but on this image I'm actually running a 5-minute exposure, which is crazy. So I've got a 10 stop filter in, and I've got a 0.9 medium grad just to balance things out a little bit. So that movement that you normally get on a slow shutter speed won't be there, it'll just be completely flat. What I might do, if I'm feeling brave, is I may well take a shorter, longer exposure to get some of that movement maybe coming over these rocks, so maybe on a quarter of a second. And if we pick up some nice detail in the cloud as it moves past on a 5-minute exposure, might bring them together. If I manage to do that and they both turn out, I'll put them up and you can have a look at the difference between those. It's just, you know, the noise of the birds here is crazy. And last time we was here, actually, because we did come down for a recce to this spot just to see what it was like at low tide. And then you start imagining what it'll be like at high tide on a fantastic sunset. And you could just picture what it's going to be like. So I suppose this might be what we would call a recce actual shoot. So when we was here last time, that's what I was saying. So when we was here last time, we got absolutely crapped all over by the seagulls. And some of the seagulls, the noises that they make, it sounds like they're laughing at you. I don't know whether it's me or not, but there you go. So we took precautions today and brought wipes and kitchen roll and all sorts of things. Umbrella. But anyway, so yeah, that exposure is running. So say in the immediate foreground we've got these rocks. I've tried to cut out this cliff to my right because it was sticking in the frame, sort of unbalancing things, because we've got a few of these rocks to the left that are just creeping in on the left of the frame, and then we've got obviously the rocks out to sea. With the seagulls, the one thing that I noticed when we came down to Bow Fiddle was on those slower, shorter exposures, when the birds are moving, you got the trails. Where on a 5-minute exposure, I'm hoping that will clear all that out, basically. So yeah, I mean, this is just such an amazing spot, and there's nobody here. And there was nobody here last time we came down, and you know, you just think there's so many opportunities for compositions, and it's just lovely to be here, whether you're here with your camera or not. The sound of the waves, the birds, it's lovely. So that exposure's actually just run off on 5 minutes, and it is still a little bit dark. It's still slightly underexposed, but I absolutely love the composition and the way that you can see sort of the rocks in the water. It looks immense. So I've just altered that now, and I'm going to do a 6-minute 20, so another 80 seconds just on that shutter there, just to see if that lightens the image anymore. The beauty is we're not rushing, and the beauty is we can just come back to this location over and over. That's what's so nice about being in Scotland. It's just, you know, normally we would come up to Scotland on a sort of 7-8 hour journey, go to a location, and if the conditions weren't right, be so disappointed that we'd not had the fantastic sunset that you wanted or the glorious sunrise. But it's just lovely to be sort of, you know, just jump in the car and just pop to the coast, and absolutely blows my mind. I'm tempted to do another one and maybe run it for 8 minutes for the sky more than anything, and just to brighten that exposure up. And then I'll take my quicker exposure for this water, and then I think we'll have a look for another composition. Bud's found one just across there where there's a little cave and the water splashing up, so we might have a look there and go across to the further side as well, just to see if there's anything else. But so far I think this is my favourite composition. But yeah, I'll run this next 8 minutes and see how that one cooks. So it is really clear on the horizon, and we're umming and ahhing whether to hang around or not for sunset. The thing that we're toying with is obviously the tide will be back on its way out. So high tide was 5:30 and sunset's 9. So these lovely compositions that we've got at the minute with all the rocks sort of won't really be there. You know, just across here you can actually see, I think it's Caithness, which is absolutely fantastic to see just through this gap. It's that clear on the horizon, and there's so much texture and detail in the clouds above. So I'm thinking, it could be the ideal conditions for sunset. But we'll see. I think we'll maybe call it. We're coming up to now 7 o'clock, so we've already been here coming up to an hour and a half. You know, as I said anyway, it's not far to come back. But you know, when you're just at a location and you're thinking, you know, the ideal would have been that we'd have the tide obviously at sunset, but we might need to wait another week, another 2 weeks for that to come through, and then you're not guaranteed those sunset conditions anyway. So I think we'll stick to the plan maybe of the black and white super long exposure, 8 minutes we're currently running, and just see. It's just nice to be here, to be honest. It's absolutely breathtaking. Yeah, so 8 minutes. I think that's the longest exposure that I've ever done. So we'll put those images up. I was just sort of thinking to myself there, actually, that I still need to do the, I'm just watching where I'm putting my feet here so I don't go on my bum. But I was just thinking, so yeah, I still need to do the short, long exposure to try and catch the swirling of this water around these rocks. But we've a couple of options, so we can either do the long exposure sky with the swirling water, or the other way around. So we could do the sky as it is with all this lovely detail and texture, and the long exposure water, the 8 minute. So we'll just have a play around in editing and see what I suppose looks the best, or what's maybe slightly different. So yeah, I'll get this other exposure shot and we'll go and have a look for another one. So we went over to the cave where Bud saw the real nice composition with the water sort of crashing in and out of the cave. But as the time's gone on, obviously the tide's going out, so the water has actually receded so far over that side that the shot isn't there anymore. So we've come over this side. Now the problem that we've got here is we've got this big dominant cliff which at the moment is catching the light beautifully. If I put that in this shot, what we've got on the right hand side is this great big cliff with then the little sort of rocks out to sea and in the foreground, which completely unbalances the shot. If I go further down, sort of in and amongst all the rocks, we've got a rock out to sea that's then obstructing the triangle rock. I've just been having a look on the map, triangle rock. I've just been having a look on the map to see if I can see what it's called, but it doesn't name it, so I might have to do a little bit of research on that. But yeah, we've then got this first rock in the sea that cuts into the back one, which isn't really going to make for a good image, but the light just now is incredible. We have decided to call it a day because we want to be up for sunrise.
Well, how nice is it to be back out and about? Lovely, lovely, lovely. And in our favourite place that we now live, Scotland.
Yeah, so hope you've enjoyed that little bit of a mashup. Is it a mashup?
Yeah, that'll do.
An experiment. We have. It's been lovely to be out. So we'll leave you there and hope you've enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Take care. Adios. Say something.
What shall I say? I don't like it. I don't know how you do it.
You're going to start over?
Yeah.